Hey everyone, welcome back to my eighth Zoom series episode of After the Play Ends, Hanging the Cleats Up. This is the Zoom series where I, Anya Olson, get to interview retired collegiate athletes and pick their brain a little bit and talk to them about what they've struggled with the most since retiring from their sport. Today, I am joined with my assistant coach at Piedmont University. Well, you were my assistant coach before before I'm retiring. But I'm joined with Stephanie Lamm. So Stephanie, tell us a little bit about what got you into your sport.
My parents decided when I have an older brother, he's 2 years older than me, they said, we want the kids to play team sport. So I grew up playing soccer and I started with t-ball, played a little bit of softball. And then when I got to like fourth grade, I ended up deciding to play club soccer. I got recruited by an academy coach at like my YMCA game. Um, I was like scoring a bunch of goals on his players because that was the last year you could play YMCA and academy. And so he like came up to my mom after the game and like recruited me. And so I ended up playing club. So after that, I was like, probably shouldn't play softball. And honestly, not that good at softball anyways. So from there, I just stuck playing with it. And that's just where I went.
So you primarily played soccer, like you never tried anything else besides softball, really?
Yeah, I did try out for middle school basketball. Didn't make the team. Wasn't very good.
Hey, you tried. That's the important part. You tried.
Well, in my school at the time, the middle school, they didn't have middle school soccer, and all my friends wanted to play like a school sport. And they're
Oh,
like, "We're out for basketball," and I was like, "Okay, me too."
yeah.
I'm not good at basketball at all.
I'm not either. I'm not coordinated with my hands whatsoever. Nope, not a chance. Okay, so what made you want to play in college?
I actually knew from a really young age that I wanted to play in college. I was a big UGA fan growing up, and so like as a child, I was like, I want to play for UGA. Um, and then just throughout middle school and then getting into high school, kind of learning more about the process and going to camps. I remember the first time I did a Texas A&M camp, and that was like the realest experience I've ever had. And I was like, this is what I want. And then from there, I did smaller ones. I did North Georgia, I did a UGA camp, I did UNC camp, which was like very eye opening.
Wow.
Um, and from doing that, I was like, yeah, this is exactly where I want to be.
Nice. And what school did you ultimately end up going to?
So I ended up going to Emmanuel College in Franklin Springs, Georgia. And I ended up going there. I had a couple options, but I ended up going there because they had my major. So I wanted to major in sports management, and they were the only school that had it. So
Yeah,
I no, it's so common now, but at the time it was not as common.
for sure, for sure. So how was your college experience? Would you say it was negative, positive? Are you happy that you played in college?
I would say so. My first 2 years, I played for a different head coach than I graduated with.
Mhm.
The first head coach that I had, he was interesting to say the least. And by my sophomore season, I was honestly looking to transfer. I was like, this is not the place for me. I don't want to be here. And we got an email. I still remember waking up and we got an email. I'm thinking we're receiving our fitness packet because that's what's coming next after season. And it was him resigning and he was leaving. And I
Wow.
was like, oh, that's different. And so I was like, maybe I'll stick around
Mhm.
to see what kind of head coach we get after this. And we got to be a part of the hiring process, and they ended up hiring Nate Harrell. And so that ended up being my coach. And he, from the start of the interview process all the way through, phenomenal guy, super close to his family now. But I loved my college experience. And honestly, it's like crazy to think that I had a different coach for my first 2 years because I only think of like, oh, my college experience was so great. I loved it. But I only had them for like 2.5 years. But I'm so glad I played in college. I can't imagine doing anything different.
I think the same because I had gone back and forth a lot. And like, especially my freshman, sophomore year and during COVID, when I had been like away from my family, I was like, honestly, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. I might be okay. But like
Yeah.
when I look back, I'm like, there's, I would not change it. No way.
Yeah, there's nothing that compares to it. Like I always thought, I'm like, oh, I wonder what it would have been like to go to like a really big school and like have that big like, football experience or
Yeah.
whatever. But I'm like, no, because just nothing compares to it. Nothing compares.
Yeah. What was your favorite part of playing in college? Either like a team thing or like a school thing, anything.
I would say my favorite thing, probably my favorite moment would just be like all the away trips. Like I liked traveling. I liked being on the bus with my teammates. We would always do the freshmen anytime we had like a super close away game because some of our conference games were only like an hour and a half away. So we would share a bus with the boys and we'd do a double header. Um, and on that bus ride, we'd make all the freshmen sing karaoke. You'd get the bus mic and all the freshmen, guys and girls, would have to sing karaoke. But then it would also turn into like multiple people would get up there. But if you win your game, then your coach has to sing karaoke. So everybody was always like so pumped to win those games. And I remember we went to King and it was my coach's birthday and we did the karaoke. And then I ended up scoring a hat trick that game. And it was my one and only hat trick in college, but it was like the best memory. And I just remember them. It was like dark and they were just screaming karaoke and it was Taylor Swift, but it was hilarious.
Oh, see, those memories are so special because for me, like, Timmy, my head coach, Timmy McCormick, always says, he will always say, you're never going to remember if you win or lost this game. You're going to remember like the memories that you made. And we're like, oh, shush, like, whatever, after we just lost a game. But it's so true because all I remember is like the bus rides with my friends and our trips that we took and everything else. So it's so important to like not just play a sport to be playing a sport, but to also make
Yeah.
those connections and to have those lifelong friends and those lifelong memories. So just a quick reminder to everyone watching, this is my Zoom series After the Play Ends, Hanging the Cleats Up, and I am joined with Stephanie Lamm. This is my 8th episode. And now I want to transition to a little bit more of after college and how your life has shifted a little bit or transitioned. So what has been your biggest struggle since moving on from your sport or since you've retired from your sport?
This is a good question because I was the type of person that like I was soccer. Soccer was my everything. I always identified myself with soccer. Um, and so when I graduated, at least obviously for us, we're done in fall. So that you still have a whole semester of school. So you're still kind of around. So it's kind of weird. Because like it almost doesn't feel real. But I was scheduled to do a Beyond Sports tour, which I don't know if you know about them, but it's a big sports organization. They basically pull a bunch of kids from all around the country and then they take you on these trips. So me and then two of my other teammates went to Costa Rica. And they pull a bunch of other
Cool.
it's really fun. It's so fun. And you go and basically you fly out there, you play like 3 games against like a Costa Rican team, but then they take you all around and they go all over. So it's really fun. So I had that to look forward to when I graduated. I was like, oh, like I'm not done. Like I was still kind of training because I like wanted to be in shape for that. And then I got back from Costa Rica and I was like, there is nothing else on the calendar. There are no more games. There's nothing. And so I tried to be okay with it. And then I found out that there was a new like semi-pro women's soccer team coming to McDonough, Georgia. So naturally I went and I tried out for the team, made it, ended up being captain for them. But the problem is that it was in McDonough, Georgia. I was still living in Franklin Springs, Georgia. That was 2.5 hours from my apartment. And I would drive there twice a week for practice, and it was late. So practice would be like at like 7. I'd practice for an hour and a half, wouldn't get home until after midnight. And I was working full time. So I'd do that. And then games were like on Sundays. And then I started going to the gym because I was like so fearful that I like wouldn't be in shape. So then on the days that I didn't have practice, I was like killing myself in the gym. And it just became this like vicious cycle of like not being able to let go of it. So it was actually really hard once I graduated just to kind of like give it up. But So I did that for a little bit, and then I ended up getting a graduate assistant position in Rockford, Illinois, which is kind of what stopped the vicious cycle of me doing that, because once I got up there and I was a grad student and I was a coach, like I didn't have time to do anything else.
Yeah. So how has it been being able to coach and like stay connected and not have to, join the team when you're 2.5 hours away and actually just like be okay with being kind of part of a team still in that
Yeah,
aspect?
I think it's good for me because I've always said for the longest time that if I could just do soccer for the rest of my life, I'd be happy. And so once I got into coaching, I realized I was like, this is actually really fun. Like I started coaching a U17 when I was in college, just like I wasn't supposed to. It was just kind of like on a volunteer basis. And my teammates and I were supposed to like rotate around it. And I was like, I'll just take the team. We went undefeated. And I was like, oh, this is actually kind of fun. So then I coached high school. Then I ended up getting the GA job, getting into the college world. And I was like, wow, this is actually really good. And it just like helped because I love the game so much and I love being around it. And when I was playing in that semi-pro league, like it was great. My knees still hurt. Like it doesn't change the fact that I've had 2 knee surgeries, I've had 2 ankles. It doesn't change those facts. So I like being around the game to where I can still be fulfilled and like be around you guys and the team, but also not hurt myself anymore.
See, that's what I always thought too. I was always like, I was exactly like you until college. I think I was like, I'm gonna play soccer forever. All I like, everything in my head was just soccer, soccer, soccer. I was so obsessed with it. And then I got older and I was like, I don't know about this. But same.
It's
I was like, I'm gonna coach if I don't do something. Like I have to stay near it. But now like just watching it and just like being around like friends who did play soccer is like enough for me.
yeah.
So I'm like honestly, I'm okay.
Sometimes those like Thursday night adult leagues, that's enough for me.
They
Right?
hit,
It's
yeah.
all and like I can just like shoot from like half field and I don't have to do a whole lot of running. Like that's enough for me.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. I'm like, when I do miss it, hasn't happened yet, but when I do miss it, I will do an adult league.
Sign up for one of those.
Um, so what has been your favorite part of coaching and what have you like learned from your players or from being able to coach?
I think my favorite part of coaching, I feel like the like easiest answer would be like, oh, because we win so much and we do great things. But it's not for me. It's like it's all the little stuff that y'all do. It's like the moments of like for instance, Skeeter all year was like so down on herself and was just like would get
Oh,
frustrated when she couldn't score. And I'm like, I don't know why you're upset because I'm not upset. Like,
mhm.
I just want you to do well. And I know you can do it. And it's like the breakthrough moment at Berea. And she like beats 2 people and like scores upper 90. I cried. I literally cried because it was just such a good, wholesome moment. I was like, no, this is what we've been saying. This is what I've been telling her. This is what we've been working on. And so when it comes full circle, it's like that is like the moment I'm just like, oh, like I just got goosies. Like now I'm crying a little bit on the sideline because it's just so good. And I, like obviously her face and like coming off the field and she's like smiling ear to ear and like the whole bench is going crazy for her. It's like little stuff like that. And there's been moments with I think like everybody on the team where there's like a breakthrough moment. We give them a coaching point and we always joke, we're like, wow, gosh, I wonder who told her to do that, but it is like such this breakthrough moment of like seeing you guys succeed is so fun. And like seeing you guys like realize like, wow, I am really good. And then you just go and do great things. It's so rewarding. I love it.
See, and that's so much fun for us to see too as players. So like it's cool to
Yeah.
see that coaches love it, but also like players, like when Skeeter
Yeah.
scored, and for anyone watching, if you think that's a silly name, Skeeter is the nickname for a player. Her name is Madeline Paris, so she does have a real name. But
Yes.
but like when she scored, we were all so frustrated that game, and I remember we were all just like, thank God, like she needed that so bad. Um,
Yeah.
but they're so fun. Like I'm gonna remember that the rest of my life. So
Too.
such a great memory. But what advice would you give to any player retiring or thinking about coaching and wanting to get into it, what would you say to them?
I think I would say to them, especially if you're just graduating, I know for some people it's really easy. Some people are just done and it's not a big deal to them. They're like, yep, I'm good. But for those people that it's hard, it's okay for it to be hard. I started therapy a while ago, not because of soccer, just in general. And my therapist, the big thing she said is like, it's okay for your body to change. It's okay for you to not be as fit as you were when you were 21.
Mhm.
And it's okay to also like love yourself at 21 for being that fit, but it's also okay to be who you are now. And it's okay that you were like Stephanie, who played soccer for the longest time, but who are you now? Because you don't have to be that for the rest of your life. And it's crazy because your whole life, through academy soccer and club soccer and travel and high school and all these things, everybody kind of helps you to get to college. You're taking tutors, private lessons, you're doing all this stuff. When you get to school, there's counselors, you've got coaches, you've got strength and conditioning. And then you graduate and there's no one,
Okay.
which is so crazy to me. And so, I think it's okay. And if you feel like you need someone to talk to about it, there's a lot of resources. There was a big trend on TikTok of girls talking about it and just talking about body image, which was so true. It was like learning to accept the fact that my body has changed because I'm no longer training 6 days a week
Yeah.
and I'm not playing consistently. So I think for those people, if it's hard for you, it's okay for it to be hard. You are not the only one that's struggling. And I think finding little ways to get yourself back in the sport, whether you decide to coach a U7 team, or you decide to just go volunteer, do private lessons, or sign up for an adult league or something. But I would say keep yourself close to it because it definitely helps for sure.
Yeah. That is such good advice that your therapist gave you. Obviously, I would hope
It
since
is.
our therapist, but like that hit me hard, Steph. I said, "Oh,
I know. It was just something that we like casually brought up one day. And I said, Brandy, okay,
girl."
all right.
Yeah, that's something me and my roommate have talked about a lot. We've been like looking at old pictures of us from freshman year or from high school, and we're like, "What?"
I
Like,
used to have abs. Like that's
yeah, it's so unfair because guys have their it's I talked about this in some of my past Zoom interviews as well, but it's so important for girls because we have different bodies than guys. We have different hormones than guys. We have different cycles than guys. So like they literally can have abs until they're like 30 and we don't
yeah.
look like that.
No,
And it's nothing
no.
that like we could be doing the exact same workout as them and our bodies are just not the same,
Yeah,
which is really hurtful.
it's hard, but and I think it's really hard too, because especially in the sport, you're like not necessarily pressured, but you want to eat well because you have to perform well. And so you have to be in this kind of shape and then you graduate. And I said I would never get up and go to a gym at 6 a.m. ever again in my entire life because I'm like, no one's forcing me to do it. I'm not gonna do it. And I'm like, and I don't really want to go run. That doesn't sound like fun either. But so now it's just kind of like, well, obviously, if you're not doing those things 6 days a week, you're not going to have abs. You're not going to look like that. And I know some people like really get into lifting when they're done. So if you feel like that's like a place for you to channel all your energy, I would say go and do it. It wasn't for me personally. I'm okay with where I'm at, playing in my one Thursday night league, but for others, maybe that's a venue for you to go that way.
Exactly. Find what works for you. I like.
Yeah.
And then my last question is, I know you mentioned a little bit about the media and how you saw that movement. How else has the media influenced you in a positive or a negative way after you've graduated from college?
I think there's just social media can be so negative at times, but it can also be really helpful and like understanding you are not alone. So just going through and, funny trends that people pick up, like the girls were doing, that their body was not the same as it was at 21. But there's also just like funny TikToks of like me walking after being a college athlete for 4 years. And it's like your knees just like popping and crackling. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's so
And
true.
you're like, me too.
That's me. So I think there's a lot of really good stuff, but I follow a lot of like coaching accounts and sometimes I'll just be scrolling on TikTok and I'm like, that is a great passing pattern. We're going to favorite that. We're going to use that later. So I think there's a lot of really good stuff. I've seen a lot of stuff. I've also done a lot of like virtual like coaching conferences. I did one with Jill Ellis. You could just sign on, and she had a lot of really great things to say, especially for people getting into the coaching world. So I think there's a lot of, obviously you can find a lot of negative, but I think you just kind of have to find your niche in the social media world. And there's a lot of really good stuff out there as well.
Nice. That's exactly what I've been realizing too. Is like if you
Yeah.
focus on the negative, it's gonna be really, really negative.
Yeah.
But if you focus on the positive and like I've been really getting into running, shocker,
Yeah.
because I didn't used to like running, but I do now. And I follow like runners and I get like tips on shoes and other things and just like tips and tricks to get better long distance running, and it really helps me. So
Yeah.
it's a great thing to have, to not to focus on the negative, but just focus on positive.
Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff out there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for joining me. This was my 8th episode of my Zoom series After the Play Ends, Hanging the Cleats Up. Thanks so much.
You're so welcome.